Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Lucas.
And I'm Gina. Welcome to our client project on Lake Geneva. Come on in.
This summer, spend the hottest months of the year in style with Homeworthy as we visit the most extraordinary homes around the world. From the sun-soaked shores of the Hamptons to the classic beachfronts of Nantucket to the vibrant courtyards of Morocco, be sure to subscribe to Homeworthy's summer series to make every day feel like a vacation. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Gina Valenti, partner in Abrams Valenti Interiors.
And I'm Lucas Goldbach, partner and design director at Masse Architecture and Design. Welcome to our client's beautiful home in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. This house was originally built as a Victorian and later had a Greek Revival addition, which made for a very interesting architectural style to work with.
It was an incredible house, and I think an opportunity for us to do something totally different from their urban environment with this client. So we got to have fun exploring some different shapes, using different color palette, and it's just a phenomenal space.
They're the kindest people, and working with them in the city and then now again here at their lake home was such a joy for us, and to work again with Gina and her team. We collaborate so well, and I always look forward to the next one.
Yeah. One of the first times we were meeting with the client here as the whole project team on site, the kids were outside, they were swimming, they came running up, they were soaking wet, they had towels, and then they were making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I think that was just the perfect statement about how they wanted to live their life here. So I think thinking about the design and how we developed it, it was still that can happen here, and we just improved on the space itself.
Welcome to the entryway. It's a very casual entry here at the house. You enter in through a mudroom. It's off of a really beautiful private terrace, and that leads you into the main spaces of the home. This space we really wanted to be both durable and an impact and something different from the lighter, brighter rooms elsewhere. So the walls are covered in a vertical tongue and groove material. We did these built-ins for the mudroom, so it's a very casual entry. With these strap hinges, and the front door actually has a rim lock, which is one of our favorite types of doorknobs. And we kept everything really dark in here so that when there is a really big mess, like on the floor, you don't see the sand and the dirt and the grime and things like that.
Mm-hmm. We took that foundation and we actually added a couple enhancements to the space. So we have an indoor-outdoor rug on the floor, which does add a little bit of brightness, and it's really hard wearing because there's a lot of traffic that comes in here in the summertime. This area is full of flip-flops and shoes. A little bench, I think, just to fit into this alcove perfectly for taking shoes on and off. And again, you throw your coats, your towels, everything on these hooks. In this spot, we have a little key drop so that there's somewhere to put your sunglasses, put your phone as you come in the door.
And here we're in the dining room. This was actually the original location for the kitchen, and as part of this renovation, we moved that to a spot where it had better views of the lake. Previously, there was very limited access to the beautiful private terrace that's out in front of the house, so we added these wide doors that allow that sort of indoor-outdoor lifestyle and creates a great dining space here for the family.
Mm-hmm. So here, in terms of furniture, this is the largest dining area in the home, and we used some really simple handmade Windsor chairs, which are just gorgeous, and we found an artisan out east that hand turns each of these. A super simple plank table with just really rusticated finishes. This is not meant to be precious or in any way very delicate, so just very casual for dining here. Again, you can pull up a couple extra chairs, and it works well. One of the things we love to do in our design is use playful lighting shapes. It was something we used in the client's previous home and something we took to heart for this space. So this light fixture, we loved that just modern interpretation of a classic turned wood piece. So this is made of a white oak, and then it just has some really delightful up-down with these fun, playful finials. And that really sets a nice linear tone for working with the shape of the table. For drapery, we love to add softness to a room. So we always try to introduce window treatments into any space that we can. And we just have a really full, beautiful, tailored linen stripe here that helps bring some intimacy into the space. The chairs don't have fabric on them. That's purposely because it's just really not well suited to this active lifestyle. So the drapery adds softness where the chairs are not doing that.
We also get a lot of texture in the room here from this large built-in. The material is actually a pecky cypress, which is a wood material that the clients had in a former home and kind of missed. So you can see it's got these deep pits and sort of almost voids in it that adds a lot of texture and a lot of life to it. We paired that with pecky cypress in this sort of lattice pattern, and this built-in is really great for setting out food, but they also keep things like games in there because this table is not a formal space to eat, but often a place where puzzles are being done or card games are going on. So this really is storage for those items.
So the console table backs up to the family room and the dining room, and it creates a nice transition. Instead of looking just at the back of the sofa, we're looking at something that offers service as well as function. It's made of this really beautiful scalloped wicker, and we had it painted in a custom black color to highlight some of the architectural details that have black in them as well. And it brings in a little bit of, think of that modern interpretation of a Victorian charm. So now we're in the family room, which really is the heart of the home. It's centered between the dining, the kitchen, and the other living spaces. And we worked the seating arrangement around the circulation space for the home. So we have this angular sofa. We chose indoor-outdoor fabrics for a lot of the materials here. Again, thinking a lot not only about style, but about performance. So indoor-outdoor fabrics on the sofa, on the chairs as well. Picking up a little bit of, I think, mid-century in these chairs. They're very whimsical. It's a company out of California that makes just the most delightful modern shapes with a hint of that mid-century. And then a cocktail table that really brings a playful energy to the space, just these imperfect curves all around, something totally unexpected. And I think the idea with this area was to have these little delights and treasures, whether it's a little bit of wicker here in the shade, some lacquer in the cocktail table, a lot of texture, a lot of spirit in this most casual space in the home.
This was also a space where there's not a lot of walls to it, but we had to give it an architectural character with the many openings that go into the adjoining spaces. So in reference to the Greek Revival style of the house and influence, we added these columns and pilasters to really break up these openings and draw attention to them. And this is really the hinge point for so many spaces in the house, and you can see how it flows into the others.
We begin our palettes often with the area rugs because they're one of the largest investments in the space, and they define the palette in a lot of ways. So this rug we chose with the client because it was colorful, cheerful. It's a nice casual weave instead of a traditional plush pile, which felt more at home in the spirit of a lakeside home. But it also has really great architecture. And I think taking architecture from our furnishings and using it to mirror some of the shapes that we've created with the body of the house is a really nice way to tie interiors and architecture together. So one of the things we also like to do, especially when we have solid fabrics for upholstery, is bring in a little bit of spirit and play in our pillows. And I think we had an extra bit of fun here, not just using really fun, playful fabrics like this waffle weave or this kind of like artisanal stripe, but adding in some trims, whether it was a linen fringe or making a playful flange with this grosgrain ribbon. So I think in every space you'll see a little bit of extra spirit that we've interpreted in the pillows.
I mean, I always get really excited when a client says, this home is so us, or this home is, more than we expected it to be. Like, those are the kind of things where it's like you exceed an expectation or you meet an expectation that they didn't know they had. I think the joys of doing design and doing, maybe a wide range of styles and architectures is the fact that we can tailor make everything to a client and not just do one thing. And I think these clients are a great example of that. The two homes we've collectively worked on with them are vastly different styles, but I do think they share a common language It's sort of like the outfit you'd wear to the lake is different than the one you'd wear in the city, but they come from the same closet, and that's kind of what I see when I see the clients and see these spaces.
I agree. I think when people say, "You got us," or "This is exactly what I was looking for, I didn't know how to say it," or just really just feeling the emotion when somebody walks into that room for the very first time and all the furniture is there and it's set out, and it just, the joy there. It's such an emotional process. It's such an emotional thing. This is three-dimensional art. We're living and experiencing it, and so I feel like the happiness that people get from it. Sometimes you can verbalize that, and sometimes it just feels at home. For the home to feel like them, and for them to share that with us is like one of the most exciting things ever.
And now we're entering the kitchen. The kitchen was actually the former family room, and this space was just not really in the right spot. As we mentioned before, a lot of the rooms in this house were flip-flopped, partly for scale. This kitchen was allowed to be a lot larger, and it also conjoins with this adjacent pantry. So those are the things where small appliances, coffee, snacks, all that is located in the pantry, which allows the kitchen to remain a lot more tidy.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun in this space just playing with the decorative lighting as well as the counter stools. Thinking about the architecture of the home, the vintage of this space would not have involved a lot of recessed lighting, and I think that that created an incredible opportunity for us to add decorative lighting. So you can see in the island pendants as well as the ceiling lighting, we chose fixtures that infused some natural wood. So we have a white oak as well as just a beautiful walnut in those to bring in a little bit more of a casual, relaxed atmosphere here. And then we've carried that through in our counter stools, which again have this beautiful dowel shape that you can see repeating throughout areas in the home, where everyone can pull up and just kind of have a snack.
Yeah, and as far as the kitchen millwork design, we really wanted to keep it very casual, very simple, flat panels for the base cabinets, and we integrated this perforated motif into the upper cabinets. And we even did some specialized details like built-in trays and cutting boards that are accessible from the island and just slot right in there for convenience. And then the countertops they kind of look like soapstone, and that was the client's original dream, but soapstone maintenance was not of interest to them. So this is a quartzite material that shares a lot of those qualities, super durable. We also love that, despite this being a green kitchen, it doesn't have kind of a sweet quality. There's still a sophistication to it, and again, has a bit of that historical vibe to it.
Mm-hmm. When we thought about window treatments in this home, we obviously need privacy and light control to a certain degree. So for the kitchen, we chose cafe curtains. It lets a lot of the natural light in from the upper area, but it provides privacy down below. And I think really in the spirit of the home is quite charming in the context of the architecture. To make the home feel cohesive, especially because it is such an open concept, we take colors or elements and we carry them through space to space. So while we have a beautiful green in the cabinets here, we've introduced green in other areas of the home. It's not necessarily the exact same green, but we've taken deviations of it and we've introduced it in other spaces. And that allows the rooms to evolve and not necessarily feel like matched, as well as just complementary to each other. We've done the same thing with using design elements like wood themes in our light fixtures, or the dowel shapes that we talked about with the counter stools or the light fixture. Taking some of those like shape themes and carrying them through allows us to have continuity in the space, which is something that's very important to us as an interiors team.
Also, I think like having a consistent voice to the architecture and using similar motifs throughout. So for instance, in the family room, there was a coffered ceiling using some ceiling beams. Those beams continue through here, but not as a coffer, but as just regular beams. So there's a continuity of detail there. Again, these sort of pilaster details that are really consistent through this first part of the home find their way in. And I think all that kind of lends itself to, again, making sure that there's a repetition, but not a matching.
So this piece we found is actually from a dealer up in Michigan, and it is a vintage piece that was completely restored. So they cleaned it up so that it's food safe. But all of the patina that you see here is authentic and totally true to the shape itself. So it's meant to be obviously a piece of art in itself in the room, but a functional one as well. And I think that Lucas's architecture really created this perfect opportunity to have a non-traditional surface space in the kitchen.
I mean, part of the challenge was wanting more island space, but not necessarily having the clearance to either side of it. So because this piece is narrower than the rest of the island, we have more clearance around where the family room and the walkout to the sunroom is, while still getting that extra surface and preparation space. And since the clients have younger children who are maybe a little too short for this counter, they can actually utilize this and, help cook or do crafts around it.
Mm-hmm.
So as a way to keep the kitchen a little more organized and to continue a little bit more counter space, we created this pantry or sort of scullery where there's some closed storage for all the dry goods and all those bits and bobs that are less attractive. And then there's also a spot for coffee maker, filtered water, all those kind of things where guests really know where to come to be able to get a beverage. We also use this as an opportunity to switch up the cabinet style a little bit with this style and rail cabinet in a two-tone. Again, bringing some of those repeating elements like from the entry and from the kitchen hood, this tongue and groove material, all of it to kind of create a really immersive environment and really a whole room of cabinetry and millwork. And now we're coming into the breakfast space, just off the kitchen.
So this space being octagonal, really reiterating shapes and themes in the home. We chose a round table, so again, just a really beautiful cerused white oak piece that we had brought in from England. And then to do something fun, again, to keep that playful theme that we have in the home, we chose these really delightful little chairs here. Indoor-outdoor fabric, and we have this fun stripe that we chose to do horizontally. And again, you can see this little dowel theme that continues throughout the house. For the light fixture, we chose a really beautiful airy piece because we want to make sure not to obstruct any views to the gorgeous lake. So just 4 simple shades, and we have a really fun, playful pomegranate fabric here that's bringing in some of the color themes that we have in other areas of the home.
Now with this breakfast room in this location, it's an ideal spot to also flow out to the deck that looks out and leads over the lake.
And because this space has such beautiful vistas, we didn't feel like it was essential to have window treatments, so we really focused on just maximizing our light visibility and view to the lake.
Just opposite the kitchen, now we're in the bar space, which spans between the sunroom and the lounge living room. We designed this space to be double-sided for access, so the cabinets open from both directions, so you're able to access glassware. There's a beverage refrigerator, a small sink for filling glasses, and it's just a nice central spot in the floor plan for people to grab a drink, and when you're entertaining, it makes it very easy. It also gets a few people out of the kitchen when you're entertaining so that not everyone's crowding around you. Mm-hmm. Some key materials here are this brick floor. This color was selected both because it's a light natural color, but also because it's the color of Chicago common brick, which is often comes from this area. So the clay that's made, that is harvested to make those bricks comes from this area and is featured both on the client's Chicago home, but also all around Chicago where they live. Again, a repeat of that black Marquina quartzite, bringing in a beautiful contrast. And the insides of these cabinets are also walnut, kind of referencing some of those wood tones that Gina's team brought in through all the beautiful light fixtures.
Our team chose the cabinet hardware for this space as well as for the rest of the home. And we chose just a really beautiful patinaed brass, again, something that feels relaxed and that will evolve along with the brass finishes of the faucets. And just felt very light and airy, similar to what the cabinetry design is. In terms of collaboration, we have done a previous project with this client, so between architect, designer, and client, there was already a really great rapport. Again, because our process works a lot around the foundation of architecture, we took our cues from that, and then I think there's just really great cross-collaboration, a lot of talking about things. I feel like I'll be thinking about something and then I found out you've already had that idea too. So there's like some of that just us building on top of each other, which is one of the great things about this collaboration, is that we don't leave any design element untouched. Everything's really thoughtful. Everything is kind of like making it its very best self. And I think it shows in the house, in this one as well as in their Chicago home.
Yeah, I mean, we have such a shorthand now, having worked together, and there's certain things that just make me so happy, like little hardware bits and knobs and grills for the HVAC. And I know that if I have a discussion with Gina and her team about that, they're gonna geek out just as much.
Yeah.
And it's really also a thing that the client gets into. They're very interested in those fine details, in craftsmanship, in things that are, add that uniqueness and that handmade quality or that authenticity. And so, they're always really game for when we, bring those to their attention. And those are always the things that they tell us that they tell their friends about when they're like, oh, this is called a X, and then they're like, we love them. Yeah. And I love that. It becomes part of their story about the house.
Yeah, and I think this house is very storied in itself. You have the original core structure, and then you have the addition, and I think the architecture that you guys composed doesn't try to wash that away. It makes it just really flow and seamless, and so there's this meandering of space to space, and there's just delights around every corner. So you move from area to area and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so fun, or I really love that, or I never would have thought. And so it's this constant like treasure hunt, I think, of like fun things that you discover throughout the home.
Yeah, I love that there's a lot of spaces in this house that the whole family can be together or be together with guests, but there's a lot of opportunity here to sort of be doing your own thing and having kind of those casual summer days while still maybe feeling connected. So there's overlapping of spaces, there's sight lines between rooms, but you could be, reading out here on the sun porch, playing a game, while someone could be watching TV or taking a nap in another room. And you kind of still feel connected, but you're not necessarily in a great big, great room, open space. There's some divisions here, and that really came from the architecture. When this was a Victorian house, we're on what was once just like a wraparound porch that later became this enclosed porch. And there's still vestiges of that Victorian home, but then there's these really strong references to the Greek Revival, the columns even around us now. So it's a real story, and that's how we kind of thought about the house from an architectural perspective. What are the things that happened to this house over the years, and how do we embrace them as opposed to sort of making it all one perfect style? That is not why the clients were drawn to this home.
Yeah, I would agree. I love that it's not just the great room. There is a space for everything. So you can be playing a game, you can curl up and read a book, you can have a conversation with a couple friends. There's so many places depending on your mood, and I feel like that's a lot of fun. I also think that we took the furnishings and we had that same approach as with layering and adding styles and surprises. So we have things from different eras, whether it's modern Italian design, things that are inspired by the mid-century, and then just new icons. So there's this mixing of old and new and different style aesthetics that makes this home feel really collected. So now we enter into the sunroom. And this area of the sunroom is a continuation of the bar area and extends out the back of the home. This section specifically is for a game table. So we just have a really charming rusticated wood game table with a playful base to it. Again, keeping that whimsy and those dowel shapes is a recurring theme in the home. And then the game chairs themselves incorporate caning, another, I think, nod to that Victorian area that we have, but we've chosen them in a light bleached finish and then just a really delightful nautical stripe on the chairs themselves.
This is part of that sort of Greek Revival section of the house that was built. And so the windows were a huge part of this project. These are custom windows that came from a company in Italy called Brambal. They were able to produce for us a replica of the types of windows that were here before, and we're able to have like beautiful brass hardware on them. So these bifold and open up, and then we actually have screens that roll in from the side so that we're able to really let this become an indoor-outdoor space, but you don't have to look through screens all the time as well. So there was a lot of coordination that went into this. Also, it integrates into these large columns that in this space look one story, but from the lake are actually a full 2 stories tall.
So on this side of the sunroom, we have the lounge area. And here we've chosen a modular sectional piece, which is in a really just fun, playful fabric. We have a lot of solid fabrics in the home. And so this was the one space in the home where we felt courageous enough to try something different. We've added a modern side table. And then again, a little bit of a nod to that Victorian wicker, but in a playful color. And that bright, sprightly green is the same green that you're seeing in other areas of the home. So there's a nice recurring theme to it. One of the things that was important to us was making sure that we managed the view to the neighbor's property, especially if we want to create a more relaxed environment. So we added a drapery panel along this entire wall here, and it's a one-way draw that goes all the way across. You can see it's just a really light, casual, like chunky fabric that adds a little bit of softness and diffusion and creates a cozy environment here. We've taken that fabric and we use it in other areas of the first floor so that we have a nice continuity across the space.
Also, you'll notice the wood ceiling in this space. That one of the major requests from the client was this was a wood ceiling that was here before, and while it had to be replaced during construction, we matched the original profiles. I also love the warmth that this brings into this space. You can see the exterior siding comes into the room on these inner walls, and all of the new windows and columns are white as well. So paired with the light color floor, I think it really brings a lot of warmth and texture. We also, moving into these other spaces, the interior of the home has these blonde white oak wide plank floors, and that continuity with this brick tile really doesn't stop the visual line as you're looking through the house towards the lake.
Mm-hmm. And we didn't put area rugs in this area of the home purposely because the tile was just so beautiful. We had really great architecture and foundation to anchor these spaces, so there was no need to add a treatment to the floor.
And now we're coming into the sort of living room or lounge space. You can see that this is the other side of that bar built in, so access to those glasses and so forth through there. Again, this is really at the center of the house, and these chairs are set up in what was once the bay window of the Victorian era of this home. As part of the renovation, we dropped all of those openings to the floor, so now you can really flow out and through those openings. And it's a kind of really intimate, casual spot where you still have these great views of the lake.
Mm-hmm. Working with that architecture in this octagonal space, we have just a really great conversation area here in the center of the living room. We have 4 swivel chairs, which is fantastic because I think it inspires conversation not only within this area, but you can certainly swivel it around and have a relationship to some of the other areas in the home. So I think there's versatility there. Great cocktail ottoman in the center with a couple different layers of finishes. We have a woven leather at the base. We have leather on the top here. And again, that beautiful dowel shape that continues onward. For the rug, we chose something special to respond to this architecture, and it's this beautiful sunburst sisal. So the pattern really radiates out from the center of the piece, and then you can see gorgeous scalloping that happens on the outside edges. So a really great natural foundation to the space itself. We have a light fixture here, again, continuing our theme of just interesting shapes and light sculpture more than fixtures. This soft shade had some nice diffusion of the lighting, and then in a really coarse woven natural fiber, so you can see that undulation of the textile itself and a nice soft diffusion in the room. And then as we move from the seated area to the daybed area in front of the hearth, we have this whimsical daybed with this fun wave pattern here in a beautiful wood, and then we've chosen to upholster it in this gorgeous linen flame stitch. That just really adds a lot of punch to this space.
This is, really the ideal spot for a winter visit up here, or one of those colder shoulder season days where you light the fire, take a nap on the daybed. And again, I love the flexibility of this room and the way that Gina's team set it up. You can really have conversations in multiple directions. And like so many spaces in the home, you can be together, but not necessarily in one space, when you have the full house full of guests.
I think one of the ideas we had about this home in terms of furnishings, and I think in response to the architecture, is that it's not just a summer space, it's a retreat home. So while it's wonderful in the summer, a space like this at the hearth, or even any of the other cozier spaces in the home, can respond to a beautiful autumn or a wonderful winter, both of which we have an extensive amount of here in the Midwest.
Here in the lounge living area, you see the little hint of stair that'll lead you upstairs to all the guest rooms. At the base here is actually some old black and white photos of the house through different eras. And this will take us up to the snug, which is the next space. And now we're entering the snug. So the snug is landlocked here at the middle of the second floor between all the bedrooms. In each direction we've got to the sun porch, to the main bedroom, to all the guest bedrooms. And this is one of those spaces that I just think about being out on the lake all day and you're in the sun and so much sun. This is where you come and have your sort of afternoon nap and get away from the sun a bit. And I just think the way that Gina's team outfitted this space is so cozy.
Yeah. We had great architecture to begin with, but we really took, again, a very immersive approach to this room. Because we didn't have traditional windows or window treatments to think about, we really went with a color drench. So we have the same color on the walls as we do on these really fun, playful European sofa pieces. Not a traditional shape in any way, but a really fun juxtaposition to the classic architectural form. On the walls, we have a fun collection of paint by number pieces that are just vintage we found and put together as a collection. So they really are the real deal. Somebody painted all of those. Not the same person, but somebody did. And then to make sure that the space is versatile for rainy Saturday afternoons like the one that we have here, or cozy winter days, we have a couple pillows. Again, just fun opportunities to bring in a little bit of play and whimsy in these pieces. Pulling colors out of our woven rug, and then these cute little ottomans here and just a very rusticated leather adds a lot of texture to the space.
I always think they look like rocks that you pulled out of the lake.
I think they look like tardigrades.
Love it.
So, yeah.
This space also has that repeat of the tongue and groove material that we see throughout the house, just for that bit of texture and that bit of history.
And of course, because there's a TV, we want to make sure that we have some storage for all of those miscellaneous things. This is likely a place where video games happen. So we have a storage console in just a beautiful walnut. Again, picking up some really interesting unstructured themes in the base of it. I always loved design. I just didn't know you could put a label to it. I remember like staging Matchbox cars in my bedroom and thinking, well, this looks cute. My father was a carpenter and a general contractor, and so he would take us to construction sites, and we'd have house plans all over, and I would just grab these plans and read them. And I loved the smell of sawdust. Like, I just loved the idea of these homes that could tell stories, and so it always inspired me. I didn't find design directly. I studied business in school, and then shortly after leaving to go into the business world, I realized there is so much more to life than this. So I went back and I studied design, and I've never for a moment looked back. It's where I was meant to be.
Yeah, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and for a school trip we went to Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. And I had grown up in a pretty conventional suburban neighborhood with pretty typical houses, often repeating as you go down the street. So seeing this house that like truly blew my mind and was over a waterfall and had all these features, I was like, this is something that someone did. This is a way people could live. And from that moment on, 7 years old, I was hooked, and that was a straight line from here to there. I'm just obsessed with houses. I always wanted to be a residential architect. The way people live, the way that you can be in your house and what that makes you feel is just like so a part of who I am, and such a part of who our business is, and we just love telling those stories. Now we're in the primary bedroom.
This space has an abundance of natural light through windows on 2.5 facades of it. So we began with creating some intimacy in terms of drapery. So again, beautiful, textural, rich, gauzy drapery. More framing the windows than really creating light control, because most of the view is lakeside. We love wall covering in all of our bedrooms. So here, just a really casual, diamond-shaped natural fiber pattern to it adds a really nice foundation without feeling too heavy in the room. And again, keeping a lot of these warm, natural woods that feel so at home in Lake Geneva and the Wisconsin area. We have beautiful walnut bedside tables, turned body on the bed itself, and then adding texture in on the floor with a beautiful braided area rug. We templated it to the room because it's an octagonal shape. There's really not an easy way to put a traditional rug into the room without leaving something uncovered. So we templated this rug to the room, and then we introduced some antique rugs into the space to add a little bit of color and life to the area.
Also behind us, you'll see this sort of wall of sliding doors with glass and in some cases mirrors. The glass was introduced so that the main bathroom has views out towards the lake, and then the mirrors here conceal the main closet, which is just behind here, with beautiful built-ins and dressed to the nines. And then this also allows for views of the lake even when you're not looking at the lake. So while we have windows on these 2-3 sides, this really multiplies that lake view and multiplies that natural light. Now we're in the sort of study area of the main bedroom. We're actually just above the breakfast room where we were in before. Again, really some of the best views of the lake, especially here from this upper level. In this octagonal shape, we treated the ceiling with beadboard similar to the different sun porches, and that was one way of really creating a moment here that provided a great spot for a beautiful light and a really incredible piece of furniture.
When we went through the space planning process with the client, we discovered that they had seating here in the home before we started the project, and they just weren't using it. So we started concepting different ways to use this space and came up with kind of a private working space. So we found this stunning editor's desk from a manufacturer out west, and it has just a beautiful oak wood top and this curved body that feels born to fit into this space. We paired it with a playful chair, again, that really fun theme with the wood shapes, and then anchored it with the antique area rug. So if you're doing a little bit of private contemplation or working or studying, they don't really have to go out into the main area of the home, but they can sit here and just make the most of the serene lake views. And I think the drapery does a great job here in elevating the space and showcasing the extra ceiling height that we have here in the room as we lift up into this area, bringing the eye up vertically. Ultimately, a beautiful gauzy linen lantern style shade that completes this area.
I love on a day like today with these blustery winds and crazy waves that are happening here on the lake, it feels like a captain's lookout or something. There's a real sort of drama to it, and it's such a beautiful spot to see the lake even on a day like today.
We love the warm, natural materials. There's nothing cold or cool about this, and I think in just these flaxy linen hues, it really creates an immersive environment.
Now we're in the main bathroom. The main bathroom was really built around this vanity and tub area with a really expansive shower down the way that repeats this quartzite material, also as a liege tile. Into the water closet, there's a repeat of those glass partition doors, but really the palette was inspired by this beautiful water monopoly kind of blue-gray tub and this beautiful quartzite. We really tried to think of this space as a cabinet where there happened to be, some plumbing fixtures in. So the walls are all paneled and detailed with hidden medicine cabinets, mirrors integrated into the panels, lights integrated into the panels, and then the spruce oak that really provides just a softness and warmth against these cooler tones of the plumbing fixtures.
Mm-hmm. And a great foundation for us to add accents, again, taking the brass that's in the plumbing fittings and reiterating that in the cabinet hardware. I think playing up that captain's quarters, a little bit of a nautical theme. We have the gorgeous glass diffusers on the light fixtures themselves. And then bringing in softness into the room was what an interior designer often does best by taking the drapery fabric that we had in the bedroom and carrying that through here, flanking the tub area. So this becomes less about being like a true bathroom and an extension of the living space, more than that. So we have that same beautiful fabric here. And then our light fixture also has a gorgeous fabric on it. So this just really beautiful soft shade in these really interesting peaches and green colors that take some of what we have in the bedroom and bring it through into here.
Because this is a bathroom and we wanted this large window, but we do have neighbors, we actually frosted the window here, which also contributes to such a beautiful quality of light, such a soft quality of light. Again, today it's pretty gray and dreary outside, but you still get a lot of gorgeous light through that space. And I just think it's such a beautiful extension of the main bedroom through these glass doors. And we even continued the wood floor into this space, which is maybe less typical for a bathroom space. You can see we transitioned to tile where it's more important outside the shower, but that warmth of that wood coming through really adds a beautiful layer.
Mm-hmm. I would say something here the light is doing a great job of capturing is just the rich patina of natural unlacquered brass. We have a lot of living finishes, a lot of natural finishes that look gorgeous now, but are intended to look even more beautiful as time takes its toll on them. So you can see just the pitting and the staining that comes from brass coming into contact with water. And that will happen to almost all of the metal fittings, the lighting, the cabinet hardware throughout the home.
Yeah, it's really a way to make what is a newly renovated home have a bit of that history, letting things be imperfect, letting things take on patina. That's where the cerusing, I think, adds such a layer of history. All the unlacquered brass with these waterworks fixtures. I just think there's such an interesting story they start to tell. And I think the house doesn't feel like it just happened, over the past couple of years, which in a lot of ways it did, but has its longer history.
When we finish a project, we always talk about, we get in the car and we're like, okay, well, what was your favorite thing? And everyone has something to say, and it's never the same thing. And we did that on this project too, and everyone was like, what's your favorite thing as we're sitting in traffic? And I never really pinned down what my favorite thing is, because there's just so much to fall in love with. And I feel like in the end, that's a testament to maybe a job well done, is that there's so many places in different ways for you to just fall in love over and over again.
I would say, because of the force of effort it took and the collaboration with the fabricator and the vendor, this sort of lake-facing temple, essentially, that it looks like, we installed all of these custom Bramball windows, which is a company out of Italy. They bifold to open up towards the lake, and then there's sliding screens that come across. So this space we're in can be really indoor, outdoor, depending on the weather and depending on the season. Integrating those with 2 stories of columns and all the sort of structural features that are hidden behind that took a great deal of effort, and is also in some ways like what this house is for. It is for the lake. So this lake-facing room was, as much of a part of the project as anything, and we're just so pleased with how they turned out, and they're so thin and crisp and beautiful, and also really reference the older wood windows that had to be replaced that were here before.
I love how cheerful it is. I think it, that invitation of color. There's times when the sun is coming in, and the home inside feels like a puddle of sunshine. And I love that it inspires a welcoming, relaxed, kind of joyful mood. And that's, I think, what a lake house is at its very best.
Even on a day like today when it's raining and gray, it still feels really lovely in here.
I know. I think home it's where we share the space with other people. It's where we make our memories. It's where we live our lives. It's the most intimate thing, I think, of all of the places that we visit or places that we spend time. So it's just truly a feeling of belonging and of togetherness.
Yeah, I think home to me is kind of where you can take your deepest breath and just be fully relaxed. And I think when a home really does its job, it does that at its core. And I think that's what, having a home that's really built for you and represents you, it allows you to kind of live in your element. And that's always, I think, the goal.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.